The lonely volunteer Clayton and Rough Laura, a forbidden love across the nebula. Clayton had always thought space would feel louder. That was the first thing that surprised him. Not the size of the ship, not the way the stars stretched into pale lines when the engines engaged, not even the gravity shift that made his stomach drop for half a second before stabilizing. It was quiet, a deep, endless quiet that pressed against him like a held breath. He stood alone at the observation window, hands clasped behind his back, watching Earth shrink into something abstract and distant, a blue suggestion. A memory already beginning to blur, there was nothing left for him there. That truth had settled into him long before the offer ever came. Friends, family, connections, each had fallen away over the years, not all at once, but gradually, like lights going out in a city one by one. Some losses were sudden, others were slow, drawn out affairs that left him exhausted rather than shocked. When the last tie finally broke, he had been surprised by how quiet that felt too. No dramatic collapse, no final goodbye, just space. So when the coalition announced the Delta Sector Initiative, limited human involvement in newly opened alien territories, Clayton volunteered without hesitation. He didn't stop to consider the warnings, the restrictions, the clauses written in sterile legal language. Human interaction with native species is forbidden. No physical contact, no emotional entanglement, no exceptions. To Clayton, it didn't matter. The idea of seeing another world with his own eyes, of standing beneath an alien sky, breathing air that had never touched human lungs, felt unreal. Like something pulled straight from the films he used to watch as a kid, lying on the floor and staring up at the ceiling, imagining stars beyond it. Except this time, it wasn't pretend. The ship shuddered softly as it exited slip space. Approaching Nebula Planet designation R-17, the onboard AI announced. Clayton leaned closer to the glass. The planet bloomed into view slowly, as if revealing itself on purpose. Swirling clouds of ionized gas wrapped around it in hues of violet and gold, the nebula glowing faintly like embers caught in a cosmic current. The planet itself was larger than Earth, its surface marked by deep reds and dark, vein like rivers that glimmered faintly from orbit. It was beautiful. Clayton landed on the planet and stepped off the ship, the atmosphere thick but breathable, scented faintly of metallic minerals and alien flora. Tall structures rose around him, organic and grown, not built, curving high into the sky, decorated with intricate patterns of glowing veins that pulsed faintly. He kept to the shadows, observing from a distance, fully aware that human presence was forbidden. But curiosity outweighed caution. Every creature, every structure, every line of light seemed alive, and then he saw her. Rough Laura, the queen, moved with an elegance he could not put into words. Deep red skin, marked with tribal patterns, tall and commanding, her long ears angled slightly, listening even when still. She was more than beautiful, she was mesmerizing. He didn't know what drew him first. The color of her eyes, the smooth strength in her posture, or the quiet intensity of her presence. In that moment, everything else fell away. It was an incident that changed everything. An attempt on her daughter's life, a sudden attack, violent and chaotic. Clayton reacted without thinking, moving through the confusion with a speed and instinct that surprised even himself. He shielded her daughter, took the blows, dodged, countered, and somehow managed to save the child. The queen's gaze met his in that instant. A mixture of shock, gratitude, and something far more complicated passed between them. That was how he became part of the queen's guard. Later, another attempt came, this time directed at Rufflora herself. Clayton's instincts saved her again. Every guard in the room froze or faltered. He did not. And for the first time, the queen was unsure whether what she felt was duty, gratitude, or something forbidden, love. A human, a creature her laws forbade, had earned her trust and shaken the foundation of everything she had built. Clayton woke to stillness, not the peaceful kind. This was the kind that came from being watched. His eyes opened slowly. The ceiling above him arched high, ribbed with organic curves that pulsed faintly, like a living thing breathing in its sleep. He lay on a surface warm beneath his back, smoother than stone but firmer than any bed he remembered. Pain flared along his ribs, memory came in fragments, running, the flash of light, the impact, the girl's eyes, the queen's daughter. You are awake, Rufflera said calmly. You crossed a forbidden threshold, she added, though her gaze betrayed curiosity. You touched royal blood by our laws that alone warrants execution. Clayton swallowed. That sounds about right, he muttered, silence stretched between them. You acted without hesitation. You placed your body between my daughter and death, Rufflora said. He met her gaze evenly. She needed help. Her expression softened slightly. You are alone, she said. Clayton nodded. Yes. Then you have nothing to hold you back. No family to return to, no bond to sever. He nodded again. Simpler, he admitted. She turned toward the city view, her posture regal yet subtle in its tension. You carry no deception, no ambition. That is why you're dangerous. You remind my people choice exists. The queen extended her hand. Hesitant, Clayton took it. Her skin was warm, steady, grounding. She drew a ceremonial blade and cut her own palm, pressing his hand against hers. A pulse of energy passed between them. You are bound now, she said. By old law, you are under my protection and my command. Clayton lowered his hand slowly, understanding the weight of the bond. The council chamber was next. The council murmured against him, seeing his presence as destabilizing. Clayton sensed the danger before the others did, an irregularity near the far arch. Crystal walls exploded, energy tearing through the chamber. He shielded Rufflora, moving instinctively, pulling her close. Her weight pressed against him, steady and real. Together, they endured the blast. She looked at him with a quiet intensity. You acted without command. Would you have preferred I waited? He asked. She did not answer immediately, only letting the weight of her presence linger. Later, in a private chamber, she stepped closer, not as a queen, but as someone who trusted him. Four arms wrapped around him, two hidden, now revealing themselves fully in a hug that anchored them both. Clayton's arms rose instinctively, encircling her, holding her as if to anchor himself to the only constant in his life. Do not leave, she whispered. I won't, he replied. They held the moment against the quiet hum of the palace, against the political pressure, against the fear of exposure. Weeks passed, secrets unfolded. The queen's extra arms remained hidden in public, a symbol of trust in private. Clayton witnessed her true self, powerful yet vulnerable. He realized that the laws of her world were designed to control fear, not truth, and he could not unsee it. The council demanded a trial, a place to decide the human's fate and the queen's judgment. The chamber was ancient, vast, alive, and unforgiving. Clayton stood at the center. Rufflora on a platform, distant yet connected by unspoken understanding. The council accused, he spoke. She confessed, she acknowledged her attachment. Her forearms unfolded before the council. Shock and outrage rippled through the assembly. An elder's voice spoke reason. Laws existed to preserve balance, not to suffocate it. The trial concluded, the queen retained her crown. Change was accepted reluctantly but undeniably. Love, once forbidden, now existed openly. Above them, the nebula glowed, the stars silent witnesses to history being rewritten. At last, beneath the nebula sky, Clayton and Rufflora stood together. Do you regret it? He asked. No, she said, smiling softly, four arms wrapped around him, two around her. They held each other, two worlds joined, a red flower blooming in the Delta Nebula. Love, once forbidden, endured. The city pulsed with quiet life, the nebula above glowing softly, a promise of hope, of truth, and of the impossible made real. The aftermath of the trial rippled through the palace like a tide. Courtiers whispered in corners, some in awe, some in outrage. Clayton moved alongside Rufflora through halls that were simultaneously familiar and alien. Familiar because he had walked them for months, alien because the weight of their shared secret now hung in the air like an unspoken current. Rufflora's presence was steady, yet Clayton noticed subtle shifts. She moved differently, freer, yet more intentional. Her hands, though often folded in ceremonial restraint, now occasionally flexed with an ease reserved only for private moments. He had seen her forearms fully only in the chamber during the trial, but now, even in fleeting gestures, the grace and power of all four were evident. At night, they would walk together in the inner gardens, a space grown long before her people's city existed. The canopy overhead shimmered faintly with bioluminescence, the petals of alien flora glowing like soft lanterns. It was here, away from the council and the watchful eyes of the palace, that Clayton truly understood her world. Have you ever thought about going back? Rufflora asked quietly one evening. The glow from the plants painted her skin in shades of crimson and gold. Her extra arms rested lightly at her sides, folded in repose. Back to earth, Clayton shook his head. No. I don't even know if I'd remember how. She studied him for a long moment. And yet here you found yourself tangled in everything: politics, duty, danger, me. He gave a faint smile. I volunteered to see the stars. I didn't think I'd find all of this. Her forearms rose slowly, reaching for him, pulling him close. He felt the warmth of each touch, each embrace different yet unified. She pressed her forehead lightly against his shoulder. I don't know what will come next, she whispered, but I do know I want you with me. I'm not going anywhere, Clayton replied, days blurred into weeks. The council remained cautious, but cautious had a new flavor now, less fear, more calculation. Clayton trained harder, observed more closely, and learned the subtle politics of a world built on ritual, expectation, and centuries of tradition. He saw the ways the guards respected him, sometimes grudgingly, sometimes openly. And he knew that because of Rough Laura, he had a place here. Not just a human among aliens, but a partner in a world learning to accept something new. Their private moments became anchors, simple gestures, a hand resting on his, a quiet look across a hall, a shared laugh in the inner gardens. And always, when the day ended and the stars rose above the nebulous sky, her four arms would fold around him, as if sealing them in a space where nothing could reach them. It was intimate without words, a trust beyond any protocol or law. Rufflora often whispered to him then, softly, Red Flower, the name he had given her privately. It was theirs alone, a symbol of beauty and life that thrived despite danger and fear. Clayton would smile, pressing his own hand over hers, over the extra arms that wrapped around him. In those moments, nothing else existed, just the quiet pulse of a planet alive and two beings learning to belong to each other. Time passed in rhythms Clayton had never known. The world of the Delta Nebula was alive, breathing, and demanding, but with Rufflera by his side, the weight of duty felt shared rather than crushing. He watched her in council, observed the careful ways she balanced power and justice, and saw the subtle changes ripple through her people. Slowly, the fear that had bound generations loosened. Clayton realized that love, his presence in her life, their bond, was no longer a secret. The guards had learned to accept it, some grudgingly, some with quiet admiration. The citizens, once distant, began to see the queen differently, not as a figure of untouchable perfection, but as someone capable of choice, capable of emotion. And through it all, Rufflera remained constant, her four arms always moving with elegance, her gaze steady, her presence commanding yet reassuring. One evening, the nebula glimmered brighter than usual, casting golden red shadows across the palace terrace. Rufflera stepped closer to Clayton, the glow reflecting off her tribal markings and highlighting the subtle contours of her form. Her extra arms reached out instinctively, folding around him. Clayton returned the embrace, feeling each arm's warmth, strength, and comfort. Do you ever think about what comes next? He asked quietly. She rested her forehead against his chest, her voice soft, almost tender. Every day, but I know it will be with you. He smiled, pressing his cheek to hers. Then I can face whatever comes. They stayed that way for a long moment, silent except for the soft hum of the city and the distant pulse of the nebula. In that embrace, Clayton realized that he had never felt truly at home anywhere before. And now, standing here with Rufflora, red flower of the Delta Nebula, he understood what it meant to belong. The queen finally spoke, breaking the quiet. I was told that attachment would weaken me, make me vulnerable. I see now that it strengthens us, makes us sharper, more alive, more human. Clayton lifted his hand to hers, gently holding it against his chest. I would never want to be anything but here with you. Her extra arms tightened around him slightly, and he could feel the unspoken reassurance in every motion. We will face challenges, she said, but I am no longer afraid. Neither am I, he replied. The night stretched on, stars scattered across the sky like sparks caught in a river of darkness. The city below pulsed with quiet life, unaware yet changed forever. Clayton and Rufflora, human and alien, soldier and queen, stood together, four arms wrapped around him, two around her, and a universe of possibilities stretched before them. Above, the nebula glowed softly, a reminder that even in a world defined by rules and law, love could exist, survive, and flourish. Red flower bloomed, and for the first time, Clayton felt complete, anchored, and home. The days that followed were quiet but alive. The city continued its slow adaptation to the new understanding of human alien relations, but for Clayton and Rufflora, each day was marked by small, precious victories. No council meeting could dictate the trust and closeness they shared. No law could undo the bond they had forged in shadow and danger. They spent mornings walking through the inner gardens, where alien flora glowed softly under the light of twin moons. Rufflora would often laugh softly at Clayton's attempts to mimic the delicate movements of her people, and he would return the laughter with gentle teasing. Every smile, every brush of skin, every embrace was a quiet rebellion against the fear that had ruled her world for centuries. At night on the high palace terrace, they would stand together beneath the endless nebulous sky. Clayton marveled at how the stars seemed brighter here, as if the universe itself approved of their union. Ruffler's four arms wrapped around him completely, holding him close in a hug that spoke of trust, protection, and the quiet certainty of love. Two of her arms circled his back, two more rested against his chest and shoulders, drawing him in as if to shield him from everything else. Clayton returned the embrace instinctively, resting his forehead against hers. "This is real," she whispered one night. "All of it, us, this world, everything." "I know," he replied softly, "and I wouldn't trade it for anything." For the first time in his life, Clayton felt anchored, not by obligation or duty, but by choice. They had faced death, law, and fear together, and now, here in the quiet after the storm, they could simply be. Rough Laura pulled back slightly, just enough for their eyes to meet. Her deep red gaze held warmth, certainty, and affection. "We will face challenges," she said, "but with each other, we are stronger than any law or fear." "Then we draw our own path," Clayton said, smiling. Together, she leaned her forehead against his again. "Yes," she murmured, "together." The nebula above pulsed faintly, casting crimson and gold light over the city below. In the glow, the two of them stood as witnesses to a universe that had once seemed vast and indifferent, now alive with possibility. Red flower bloomed in the Delta Nebula, not just a queen, not just a ruler, but a partner, a friend, and a heart joined to another. Clayton held her as the stars whispered silently above. There was no threat, no counsel, no judgment, only trust, only the shared warmth of arms that wrapped around him fully, completely, as if the universe itself had folded them into a perfect embrace. The lonely volunteer was no longer alone. He had found a place, a purpose, and love in the unlikeliest of worlds. And as the nebula shimmered across the horizon, they stood together, hearts steady, hands clasped, four arms and two intertwined, ready to face whatever the future held with each other, finally home. The end.